steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
Bad ideas, good stories. Number 3. We're
Hello.
Hello. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Hey, yeah. I've been feeling cartoonish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So, how's things, bud?
Good. Staying out of trouble.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Barely,
Yeah.
I hope, yeah. No, I actually, that was, let's just get right in and start talking, I guess, eh?
Well, it's funny that I remember one time I went and I saw Henry Rollins speak, and he was talking about back in the day when he was in Black Flag, and his description of playing in Black Flag was hate. And I'm like, self-ownership. I love
What
that.
instrument do you play? Mostly just the hate.
Yeah,
I just go in
mostly
there
just
and I
screaming and
crank the hate to 11. Yeah. No, okay, that reminds me. I had a bit of an incident on the weekend where I like totally redlined and was like, I'll just explain what happened. I'm sitting in a parking lot and I'm waiting to back out, and this guy pulls up behind me and kind of stops in the lane. Whatever. So I pull out, stop, look. He doesn't seem to be moving. So I go driving by, and as I'm driving by, the person I'm with goes, "Well, that was kind of rude." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, he turned and went out the window and went like this." And I'm like, like, it's 2020 and you're not 13. I don't even know how that's possible. So,
Well, this is Saskatchewan.
it's fair enough, right? So as soon as I hear that, oh yeah, and for anybody listening, I made the, if you want to picture a total asshole making a hand gesture that would signify someone of what they consider lesser intelligence, I guess.
Developmentally
Somebody developmentally disabled, that's how you would physically display. Donald Trump talking about a reporter. That's what you need to know. Mm-hmm. And so this guy... So I pull into the parking lot of the next gas station that I'm going to, and I'm like instantly angry. Like all I can think of is like, I fucking want to kill this guy so bad. And I see his truck drive by behind me, and first thing that comes to my head is, I'm like, well, there's been a pandemic, so he hasn't been able to get his hair cut. So when I go up there, the first thing I'm gonna do is grab him by that big fucking head full of hair and try and pull him out that window. And then I stop for a second because I saw my father do that one time when I was about 13 years old. Stop a guy he knew that wronged him and drag him out of the vehicle and literally slap the shit out of him. Not punch him once, hit him with slaps. And as soon as I got there and I pictured it, I'm just like, you're a fucking idiot. What are you talking about? Like, this guy's a moron. He's probably going to be arrested by the end of the day for the level of idiot this guy is. And I'm like, well, I'm going to run over there and punch him in the head. But it made me feel better that I got to that point and I didn't follow him around to find out where he was going to go. I was just like, nope, just go fucking get your drink from the gas station and go about your day.
There's so many things about that.
So I'm getting better.
We're working on getting better. Like, I remember one time this kid spit into the bridge and he hit my dad's windshield.
Okay.
That's all it took. So the pullover happened. Holy, watch your kids. He gets out. He walks across the bridge. He grabs the kid and drags him back. Makes him wipe the spit off of the windshield with his bare hands. My mom's like, no, let him use a Kleenex. He's like, he can use his goddamn hands. And I'm like, I grew up and I'm like, where did I get these instincts? Where did I get these instincts for the justice that needs to be
I've only
dealt?
ever seen somebody pulled out of a vehicle once, and this is how it went. So this must be what you do.
Well, I was over. I was getting some stuff from the Co-op Home Center with my kid, and I'm going through the parking lot. And she's in the back, and I'm in the front, trying to be a good dad, driving responsibly. And this guy comes flying through the parking lot. Got to be going 60 kilometers in the parking lot. Of course, he was a kid, like car full of kids, and I'm fucking mad. So I stop. I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna follow him, and I'm like, you know what? Be a bigger man. Drive out. So these guys saw me stop. And then they go into reverse and they start following me to fuck with me. And I'm like, they roll down the window and the guy's sitting there with some shit-eating grin. He's like, hey, what's up, buddy? And I'm like, what's up is you're a fucking moron. You need to learn to drive. That's a parking lot. My kid's in the car. And he's like, or what? And I'm like, or what? And I get out of the car and I start laughing at him or I start having a conversation. He's like, oh, fuck you. And I'm like, fuck me. Pop right through the window in his face. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to get arrested in front of my kid for fighting the righteous fight against these car full of morons.
And pop.
Yeah, it was a pop. And that's why you got to work on your left, because that's the one that goes through the window, the driver's side door. You can't get a good right in, you can get a left in. So
you need to work on your walk away.
Yeah, well, there's that. There is, and that's just it. And You know, I remember I got beat up really bad outside a bar one time when my buddy started some fights with the bouncers, and this guy just used my hair and he dragged me around like it was like, you know, knees and bumpers and all that stuff. And I went to my brother's house. I'm like, get me the clippers right now. I'm shaving my head. Get me a torch or an axe, and I'm going back to that bar. And Graham's like, man, is this something you want to be doing a lot? That you're going to cut your hair off to just accommodate this?
And you got to adjust all your fashion choices.
Yeah, I'm shaving the head. I'm going back to fight. You know, and so that was just it. It's been a slow change to try and get that immediate conditioning under control, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's so nice to do. It's nice to get look back and laugh instead of being like, fuck, I wish I hadn't done the regrettable thing. Like, laugh and be like, I could have and I didn't. That's
or
great.
high-five each other like, yeah, you fucked them up. Like, where's that going to get to, right? We were talking about that a little earlier, about the conditioning, or what is it, me dropping an F-bomb at the gay bar one time, or, you know, all these, like, really inappropriate conditioned responses that happen, you know?
Yeah.
And we have to evolve with the times or with the culture.
Yep.
To not be the people we used to be.
Right. We should. Do
you want to tell your story about the buddies at the whatever, the balls, the whatever balls? Or is that...
I don't know, man. It's
pretty raunchy?
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can do that one yet.
All
you
right.
know what? I'm going to tell another story then. Because we were talking, talked to a few people who listen to this, and thanks everybody for any sort of input you're giving, because we really do appreciate it. But the one constructive criticism we're getting is like, where's the fucking stories? You guys put stories in the name when I'm not getting enough stories. So I'm going to
interject. If you ask for stories, don't bitch at us that they're politically incorrect. Yeah, trust me.
But yeah, please. I have a very fragile ego. So yeah,
this is my fragile ego.
This is a story. This is a story that I told this weekend when put on the spot, and I'm like, well, this is the kind of stuff I would want to tell, but I don't think it's cool. And so yeah, you guys are gonna get it. So I was again raised in Carrot River, Saskatchewan, which is about 3.5 hours northeast of Saskatoon, and we weren't religious, but I'd say we were like hillbilly orthodox. You know, like we fucking lived as true to hillbilly form as you possibly could get away with. Like legit. I remember being a kid and my old man dragging us around behind a pickup truck on the fucking hood of an old car in the wintertime. Because we had sleds. We had sleds, but we're using the fucking hood of an old car, right? Because that's what you do when you're a hillbilly, I guess. Anyways, so my youngest brother was always really fucking into hunting. And would shoot everything. And every chance he ever got to shoot a coyote, he always took it. Well, he's leaving the small town that he works in the one day after work at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, driving down the main grid road that leaves town, and this coyote crosses his path. So he stops his truck and jumps out and reaches behind his seat for his rifle, but the only thing he's got in the truck is his muzzle loader. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with muzzle loaders. They're 50 caliber. Yeah. Russ is making the jerky motion just off screen. Yeah, you gotta put the ball in, and you gotta put the gunpowder in. You gotta pack that thing just like an old timey fucking musket. That's what he's got behind the seat, and it's already loaded. So he jumps out again, daytime, main road leaving town, shoots his coyote, and when he shoots it, it goes like through its front shoulders and doesn't kill it. So it's like fucking flopping around on the ground with these fucked up legs. So. And again, muzzleloader takes forever to fucking reload. So goes back into the truck, grabs a hatchet, because that's what he's got in the back. He's like, well, it's not going to take forever. I don't want somebody pulling up on me while I'm trying to fucking kill this thing. So as he gets up to go and finish off this coyote, he had a really bad knee. He had a really bad snowmobile injury where he tore his ACL and his MCL. So this fucking thing turns and snaps at him, and as soon as it does, his leg just goes to jello and he hits the turf. So he's lying on his back, and this thing's right beside his fucking face, half dead, trying to bite him.
Well, it doesn't want to die.
It wants to take him with it, at least. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going alone, motherfucker! So it's coming at him, and it's flailing, and it's snapping, and he's lying on his back, hatching this fucking thing to death repeatedly, like can't get up, like a fucking Ninja Turtle. And so that's the kind of shit that can happen back there. But, like, can you imagine? Like, this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like, people are picking their kids up from school and shit. And, like, I legit know people that wouldn't even slow down. They'd just be like, oh, yeah, well, as long as he gets him, I guess, like.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So, that's a story.
Yeah. I remember one time I was right into graffiti when I was about 26 years old, and me and a couple buddies would hit the train yards and stuff. And I'm gonna say I hit some pretty visible spots in the city, and I got a bit of a reputation because I really wasn't that good. But people didn't like me because I was up everywhere.
It was easy to find.
It's like, oh, there's that fucking guy again, you know? And this one cat, he got really mad because I put a crown on one of my things. And I guess in graffiti lexicon, that means I'm the king, you know? And I put a crown on top of the name that I'd write. So this guy found me in a train yard and he wanted to quote-unquote battle, which means that you go out into this area and you do your thing, you show and prove what you're made of, you know? And he does a piece and I do a piece. And I'm like, fuck this.
And there's a dance portion, right?
Well,
swimsuit contest.
Well, think about it. Back in the day, to stop gang violence, the hip hop culture used to have battles, like break-offs, like where guys would dance against each other, or MC.
Is that
or
what
DJ.
that was?
Yeah, it was to actually solve beefs with art or a creative endeavor. There's a really good show.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool.
No, that's where it originated.
Looked like fun.
That was like the Bronx area of New York. That's one of the things that hip hop helped decrease violence. Anyways, so this guy wanted a battle, and I'm like, fuck that noise, because his little crew was a bunch of like 15 to 17-year-old guys, and like some of them were pretty good, but this guy was no good. So I show up. Well, actually, no, I heard he wanted to meet in the train yard. So I go to meet this guy in a train yard, and my brother insisted. He's like, you're not going by yourself. And I'm like, okay, fine, come if you want, but fuck this kid. So I show up, and
thanks, bro, by the way.
Yeah.
Come if you want.
I don't give a fuck. So I show up, and where this guy wanted to meet on one of his pieces, and there's like probably, you know, like 8 of these kids and me and my brother, and these kids are all mouthy, and they're mouthy as shit. They're like, yo, and all the hip hop lingo and stuff. I'm like, fuck you guys. And so we get in a bit of a discussion, a heated discussion about who's who and what's what, and he's like, you know, this is my piece. I'm like, and this piece sucks, man. There's drips all over. Don't worry, you're not that great either, so just fucking settle the fuck down. And it got to the point where nose to nose, and I spit my gum in his face, you know? I'm like, hey, get the fuck away from me. But he didn't do anything because I'm me and he was him. He's about half my size, and apparently a certain reputation had preceded me of not giving a shit and being a little crazy. So we're walking away, and all of a sudden we hear this pow, pow. And my brother's like, that kid has a gun. And there's another one of these kids with a pistol aimed at us, and he's firing off rounds. And I'm like, holy fuck. And Graham's like, let's run. I'm like, no, we're not going to run, because there's 2 things that are going to happen. It's either going to feel like we've been hit by a bat. That's the worst, because it's a small caliber, or it's full of blanks. We're not going to fucking run. So I get back to the truck, and I'm like, okay, give me the hatchet. You know, because I wanted to go back. And Graham's like,
Cut the camera. cut the video. Because I can't prove anything through the audio, but never know who the fuck it is.
So I'm looking for the axe, and Graham, once again, with his rational mind, is like, is this really where you want to be? Is this what you want to be doing? You want to axe fight these kids, you know?
Yeah, you are.
And then the one
You're
kid,
gonna axe fight these kids.
we walk by, and he's like, don't mess with our crew. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? This is Saskatoon Train Yard, man. So it turned out, you know, this kid did have it loaded with blanks. He wasn't shooting a real pistol. Well, it was a real pistol, but it was loaded with blanks, and he was just trying to fuck with us. But yeah, live and learn, right? You know, the guy was...
And that's the end of that story.
No, there's other versions. We bumped into each other a few other times after that, but, you know, some of those times I was pretty blacked out. It was good. Eventually they ended up giving me a whole bunch of drinks and settling things down. I was a hothead at one time. Way back in the day.
Yeah, hothead can be rough. Mm-hmm. I've always liked the not violent confrontations. Those are always my favorite stories, honestly, because there's one I always think of, especially of a didn't really go anywhere situation. But again, it was with my youngest brother Matthew, and we were at, I'm just gonna fucking talk about this, I don't care. So we're at what was it, the Double Deuce back in the day, and the Double Deuce notorious for when you're waiting for cabs and shit at the end of the night. Oh, there's gonna be scraps, right?
Fight, fuck, or flee.
Yes, right. And so we're standing around waiting, and again, so this is the right after the snowmobile accident he had. So his legs in this like weird big brace thing. It's not really a cast, but he's braced up from the ankle just about all the way up to his hip, and he can barely get around. And Matthew, he'd be shorter than you, but thicker than me. And like a big tattoo of an eagle on the side of his head and shit, like, you know, like gnarly looking little dude. And we're standing around outside, and I see this other guy I used to work with. I haven't seen him in years, so we start chatting, and he's having a cigarette, and this other dickhead walks up, and he's like, hey man, you got smoke? And Buddy's like, well, I got just this one, but you want to pull? And he goes, yeah, sure. And he takes it, and he starts walking away with it, hey? And he's like, hey, you gonna give back my smoke? And he goes, hey, fuck you. And he turns around and flicks it at him. And I'm just like, nope, not today.
Oh,
I just fucking like, who the fuck do you think you are, hey? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, this fucking guy gives you a smoke and that's how you fucking act? Fuck you, you know? And he's like, oh yeah, what are you going to do about it? I said, you fucking find out. He says, well, we'll get my boys. I said, go get him. Fucking go get him. I'm going to get him. Okay, so he goes running inside.
I'm
we're all standing around waiting for cabs, right? And I'm like, well, fuck. As soon as he goes, I'm like, fuck. So I turn around, Matthew's talking to somebody else. I say, hey, little brother, I think we're going to get into one. Oh, yeah. I said, this guy, he's coming back out. He says he's getting his buddies. Okay. Kind of gets like this look on his face, gets real stern. Goes, all right. Well, you ready? You want to fucking get into this or what? And I said, yeah, we're going to do this. And he grabs me by the shirt and just fucking headbutts me right in the fucking head as hard as he can. And just like bang. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're ready to fucking go now. Like,
when they come out, we're already bleeding.
I'm very mad now. Like, I wasn't mad before, and now I'm really mad. And then he takes his shirt off and he's like, let's fucking go. So we're both like kind of squared off, and these guys come out, and there's 5 of them, this guy in the lead, eh? And he's walking out like he's big, and he's kind of looking back at his buddies over his shoulder going, yeah, it's these fucking guys right over here. Yeah, it's these guys here. And his buddies are like, yeah, okay. And they come walking, and they just seen this all happen as they come through the door. Him headbutting me, take his shirt off. We're both getting ready. Hey, and he's like, the buddies, you could see him just kind of like slow down as they're walking, and he's still talking to them and going. He's getting further ahead. They're like, well, yeah, but hold on, just this. These guys know I see the one guy go, hey? And so they come back and they kind of have a little powwow, and then the one guy comes over and he's like, no, it's cool, man, it's cool. He's like,
everything's
my
chill now,
buddy's got a big mouth, you know, he always runs his mouth, and I'm like, well, fucking whatever, man. This is what he wanted, you know, like.
Oh man.
So yeah, I ended up not being anything. A bunch of, oh, sorry, bro, no, oh yeah, but don't be a dickhead.
Oh my god.
I'm really glad we didn't know, because like Matthew was crippled and I was drunk. I'm like, we're both gonna get beat up in front of everybody.
Oh my god. Oh, this could be a whole episode of old stories like that. Like there used to be the Wash and Slosh in Saskatoon, and it was like they had a punk rock pool night, and they had like something like 6 pool tables. Everybody sit there and play pool and everything, and it got to be that a whole bunch of us always played pool with each other, and we'd start like, you know, betting a little bit here and there, and there would be punk rock pool nights where the place would just fill up, punk rock music playing, we're playing pool. I knew the bouncers, I knew the bartenders and all this stuff, and pretty much we were regulars. But every once in a while, a person would come in that's not part of the scene so much and, you know, try to amp up a little bit or whatever. It was kind of my safety zone, to be honest. So I was sitting with one buddy one night, and this is back when I was still doing drugs and drinking, and we were talking about how he'd fucked up a guy at like some other night where they got into discussion, and this guy had actually been to the hospital to get reconstructive surgery, and we're like, fuck dude, that's pretty horrible, you know, that's karma if that comes back on you. He's like, man, I feel bad about this shit, I wish I hadn't gone that way, but you can't really take it back. Right in the middle of that conversation, Buddy and 3 or 4 of his buddies walk into the bar, and I'm like, oh, and he's like, oh. So he's like, we start doing rails of speed, and we're like, take a couple drinks. He's like, this might get ugly, and he's starting to get sloppy because he just doesn't want to feel whatever's coming next, right? And
you don't want to get sober for a beating like that.
No, and it was getting uglier because this guy's making his rounds around the bar, pointing at our table and like pointing us out, and I'm like, holy fuck. So I go over and
those are the guys. This is who the surprise party's for. Everybody be quiet. We got the balloons in the back. The cake's coming in a minute.
So I go to the bar, and I'm talking to the one bartender. I'm like, shit might go down here. Give me a shot of Jack. So I take my shot, and I turn around, and there's this monster of a man. Like, the guy's probably like 260 pounds, a head taller than my buddy, pointing down, pushing his finger in his chest. Like, I'm like, all right, here it goes. So I take the shot, and I run across the bar, and I jump, and I start punching this guy in the face. I'm like, it's go time. And he grabs me, and he throws me through a table of bikers, like full patch biker guys. And I'm like, go through their table with this monster on top of me. I'm trying to get an armbar on him, and I'm wearing sandals at the punk rock venue. I'm kicking him in the face upside down from the bottom, trying to armbar him. He starts punching me in the head. He barrels down on top of me. I get one arm around him, and I shove my other thumb in his eye. And I'm like, okay, so are you going to blind this guy in a bar fight? Like, what the fuck? So I just grab his trachea as hard as I can. I'm squeezing and listening to his sputter. But I keep thinking he's punching me in the head, but his other buddies are stomping on my head with combat boots, right? Until so finally somebody yells, I've got badges, don't make me take it out, or we have badges, don't make us take them out. And all of a sudden we get separated, and this guy gets taken outside the bar, and I'm cleaning myself up a little bit. But it turns out that guy was actually a buddy of my friend saying, you shouldn't have done that stuff. It's just going to come back negatively on you. And I just ran across the bar and just jumped. Yeah. It was a pretty bad one.
He's giving it like a fucking fatherly talk.
Yeah,
to
and
him,
then all of a sudden, wow, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I just kind of... And we ran into each other in common, like, you know, circles afterwards, and I felt kind of bad about that. We made amends and apologized about it, but yeah, you should probably get your shit straight and not be on speed and a whole bunch of whiskey when you make rash decisions. Yeah.
Oh, fuck, that's funny. That actually reminds me, so when the Wash and Slosh was the Roxy, I had one of my most uncomfortable social faux pas I've maybe ever ever committed. It's great. We just finished playing a show, and like you kind of buzzing afterwards, and it's loud as fuck in there. You know, like you can't really hear. And I never know everybody when I'm at the bar. You know, like everybody, hey, what's going on? Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, fucking whatever. So I'm standing there and I'm talking to 3 people. I don't know this guy, and I know the other 2, and we're talking and talking to this guy, and he must know me, and he's being real. What the fuck? I can't even talk now. Real kind of forward with me, like he like knows me.
Comfortable.
Like, okay, comfortable. That's how he's being. He was being very comfortable with me. So I felt comfortable with him. And I look over, and I'm like, oh fuck, he got something on his forehead. Let me grab that. And I grab this piece of lint off his head, and I give it a hard yank, and it doesn't come off. It was attached. It was a big old skin tag right about fucking here on his head, and it was big, like big enough that you're like, oh buddy, you don't want to walk around with that on your head. So I grabbed it and I yanked on it, and I went, oh fuck, I'm so sorry. And he kind of just looked stunned for a second. He goes, oh no, dude, it's cool. That happens all the time. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, nobody's ever grabbed that before, have they? And he's like, well, no. Well, I'm like, I fucking meant no harm, man. I thought I was helping you out, but yeah. So I was kind of felt bad about that.
Yeah. When you stick your foot squarely in your mouth in one way or another. I've said it. I've done it. You know what I mean? My girlfriend was what was it? She was the coat check girl at a local gay bar. And I love going to the gay bars. You know what I mean? Because it's a
I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's a low testosterone environment. I like to dance. I like the lack of that kind of attitude of feeling threatened pretty regularly. But
right.
Yeah. And my buddies were bouncing here. My girlfriend was working. I knew a bunch of the clients. So. These guys started rolling into the bar when they started realizing that it was heavily populated by girls, and not a lot of other straight dudes for competition, so to speak. So I'm sitting there at the coat check talking to my girlfriend, and these douchey kind of dudes come in, and the one guy shoulders me out of the way because he wants my girlfriend's attention, and I'm like, sorry about that, let's just kind of weasel my way back there and hold my ground. And this guy tries to shoulder me, and I don't give, and I'm like, hey man, you want to back the fuck up? And he turns around, he drills me in the face. And my 1980s, West Side programming came out, and the F-bomb started flying. Like, this fucking cocksucking motherfucking... Like, all of the words started just coming on autopilot. And I'm hopping up and down. I'm grabbing at him. And
you don't even know where you were at that point.
No, it was just, guy hit me, and it's go time. And, and all of a sudden, I got a moment of clarity. All of this stuff just kind of like when I saw all the coat check guys and all the other staff looking at me with their jaw dropped like, oh my god, you're letting this go. And I'm at the door trying to get this guy out the door to get out of the bar, and my bouncer's buddies be like, you need to settle down, and I'm like, holy shit, I guess that's my night at the bar. It was my time to...
You were even sort of the victim in that, and you still managed to be the biggest dickhead in the room.
I was the guy that ruined the night and probably my reputation for a lot of fucking people. But that's just it. It's like that conditioning that I need to try to break. You know what I mean? And the longer and the older I go, I think we mentioned it before, trying to be more of a man than a boy. And those are very boyish kind of ways of dealing with things, Yeah.
I feel like I do have a bit of an arrested development. Like there's a lot of things. So like even like I'm terrible at skateboarding, but I still enjoy doing it. And I still try and do that. And even a lot of things I'm still into is very like teenagers are into that. You know what I mean? People in their late 30s and going into their 40s aren't, but I don't really fucking care, honestly. It's what I like.
I'm pretty good at having fun, not so good at accounting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like in my defense, like when my parents split and I was 10, everybody was like, well, you got to be the man now. You're the man of the house. And I'm like, I'm fucking 10, man. Like, so maybe I'm just trying to catch up, I guess, but...
Well, it's weird, like, I hit the streets, like, at a pretty early age, like, either in my neighborhood or going downtown or going to Broadway. We lived on the outskirts of town, so me and my brother, we bus down to where all the skaters and punks hung out, and then maybe we would take the last bus home, or we just stay out all night with a buddy or whatever, and or on the street and just go home whenever, right? And that was most of our teen years, right? So we were involved with a community of people that were everything from, like professors' kids at the university, that was the more Broadway area where it's like, my dad's a lawyer, my dad's a professor. And I'm like, I don't even know if my dad's working right now, So it is what it is.
I legit sorry, just jump in on this for a second, just talking about dads doing stuff. A buddy of mine, a big shout out to Hecklers out in Victoria, I think it is, Aaron Magoo. They got a club out there and they do lots of stand-up there. Lots and lots of stand-up goes through. And I was thinking I had so many bits that I could do just based on going to high school with him because his dad was one of the cops in town and legit arrested my father.
Oh,
you know what I mean? So I'm like, well, there's a starting place right there. We can just talk about our dads and how they had a super fun time together.
I started dating a girl on Broadway, and legitimately, her stepdad was a cop that came to arrest me or take me in for questioning from my house. And he took me aside and he's like, before you date my daughter, we need to have a conversation. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. He's like, you're not that guy? I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. He's like, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm like, all right. But yeah.
You're not a very good cop, are you?
Yeah. But at the same time, we're downtown hanging around arcades with guys that are straight up homeless, you know, with predators. Like, really, like, there was predators. There was a guy that we used to call Pedalile, and he hung around the scene. And well, I liked Lyle. I had great conversations with him. He came off as being an enlightened gay guy. You know what? You know, you're not homophobic. You got an open mind. Let's have a conversation. And he lived in a monastery, a Buddhist monastery. I found him very, very interesting. I liked him a lot. And, of course, he made a move on me eventually. And I'm like, oh, sorry, dude, not into that. That's cool. But he also made moves on like the 13 and 14-year-old boys that were on the street, like pretty regularly. And you'd see these young guys that would come out like, they were just normal kids that ended up for one reason on the street. Next thing you know, their vests have like, fight homophobia patches and all this stuff because they think that they're bisexual, but they're just hanging out with Lyle. But Lyle's like in his 40s.
Did Lyle have tigers and meth? Because apparently...
No, that's what
that's
it does
fucking
take.
with a lot of people, man.
I shouldn't say names, actually, but it is what it is. It is what it is, you know?
Well, I think if anybody knew Pedal Lyle then and knew him now, they probably know who they're dealing with.
Oh, fuck, and that's the thing. Like, I've got it around here. Buddy wrote a book. He was that political, and he's like, here's my book. You should check out my book. And I'm like, holy fuck, this guy's like a real, like, cause for change kind of dude. I remember he burned a $20 bill at a punk rock show one time just to show like the absurdity of money and like capitalism. So many people got mad at him, but I'm like, fuck, this guy's actually doing
it was
stuff.
Evidence in a bunch of other crimes, and he's publicly disposing of it.
You never
I put it in
know,
everybody.
right?
This one.
But the street life was a whole bunch of crazy shit going on all the time. And like, you know, you had drug dealers, you had drug users, you had predators, you had prey. Like, man, I remember on Broadway there was this arcade where these we all hung out. We were all in high school. I was in high school, but there was these two girls like 10 and 11 that were there all the time. And you know, they came more from downtown, you know, and I used to think that there was this SUV that would come to pick them up, and I thought it was obviously like a youth home worker taking them back to wherever they were supposed to stay, foster home or whatever it was. And one time though, one girl was hiding around one of the arcade machines. I'm like, hey, your home worker's here to pick you up, you know? She's like, oh, that's not our home worker. That's a guy who wants to fuck us, and like we usually go with him, but I'm tired of doing it and I can't get away from him. And her little buddy went out to the truck and got in with the guy from the arcade. We all hung out and took off. So this stuff happens, but nobody really wants to talk about it. So when we're a kid and we're in those environments, from a time when you were a kid, you talked about, you know, being the man of the house. Well, you know, you're kind of in a survival mode or navigating it.
Right.
Yeah, navigating those environments.
Dodging pitfalls that aren't like, oh, my homework's late.
Well, and that's a funny thing.
Grabby Joe down at the arcade.
Yeah, Grabby Joe at the arcade. You know, like, creepy guy who's going to be your friend until he can make a move on you.
Yeah.
And,
every time you need change, you got to get it out of his pocket.
Yeah. Well,
not that roll of dimes. Not that roll of dimes.
So that's a funny thing. When you grow up with a specific set of conditioned responses, you know, you're trying to dismantle that programming you had when you came up, you know.
Once you're aware of it.
Once you have to become aware of it first, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got beaten pretty significantly a few years ago, like 4 stitches on my forehead, 2 black eyes, nostrils bleeding, loose teeth.
Check your shout out real quick. No, just kidding.
Yeah, shout out to Rapper.
What's up, Rapper? How you doing?
I'm supposed to tattoo him soon now. So that's
See? And life moves on.
But they wanted me to press charges against him. The police dragged him off me, you know, and they're like, yeah, you need to charge this guy. I'm like, no, we had a failure to communicate. And we agreed to fight. I took the shit end of the stick, but we agreed to fight. Right. What am I going to do? Am I going to send him to jail and his kids don't have dad coming home on a Friday night and he doesn't show up till he gets let out on Monday? And, you know, he might end up going to get charged and have to spend time in jail away from his kids over, 4 stitches and some bruises?
Shit that fucks up the rest of his life, and you guys are cool enough with it that you're going to tattoo him now.
Yeah.
You know what
Whatever.
I mean? Like,
shit happens.
If that had gone the other way, he's still dealing with that state.
We're living in a culture where everybody wants to run to an adult to fix their problems, and they can't just handle their shit anymore. Yeah. But
and you don't always win. You don't always fucking win. Sometimes you're righteous and you're right, and you still go and you're like, nope, still didn't fucking win. That's fine.
I took a piece of humble pie with that licking.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even talking about getting beaten up, you know, but lots of stuff. So you just don't always win. Sometimes you try really hard and the other guy gets the fucking bonus.
Or you do call the police and you believe in the system and you get the shit end of the stick. You know, that's a big part of this. You know, I think in a lot of ways, I know we disagree on some of this, but in a lot of ways, I think the police are like the mop patrol. They come up and clean up the mess. They don't prevent the mess. You know, the idea is that they prevent the mess. But you believe in that system. Oh my God, there's somebody trying to get in my house. There's 3 of them. They got baseball bats. Oh, we'll be there soon.
Yeah. No,
well, they're here right now.
It's not a preventative. It's as preventative as the 10 Commandments are. You know what I mean? You know that could be a possible outcome. It could be a punishment for this. You could be, but all I can do is tell you about it, and hopefully you don't fuck up, because if you do, then this is going to be the repercussions of it, but it's hard to get out in front of. And my thing of that is
and will it be the repercussions? That's if the system actually does what it's supposed to do. Wow. There's so many things that can kind of avoid it. I'd like to live in a more responsible society, individual responsibility, but that also involves accountability. Responsibility. So if there's no accountability, what's making me be responsible?
Well, I think what helps with that, because it's a tough balance, right? Because as soon as you're responsible, a lot of times a lot of us have lived some life by the time we have to be responsible, but then you're still held accountable for the shit you did previously. You know, like, well, you're a dad now, but remember what you did when you were 15? You're like, fuck, you know. So, but I think that
I'm familiar with that.
The idea of right, but the idea of being accountable and responsible like the whole time, you know, like starting earlier and figuring that out, like physical repercussions. Again, this is a story of my younger brother. When they were, him and his buddy, 10 years old, they're having a sleepover. They're out on the farm, and they're out cutting wood like kids do when you're out on the farm. And Matthew's running the axe. Buddy goes to reach for the log that he just set up because it's going to fall over, and takes his finger off. Well, at 10, you know, you can warn somebody as much as you want. You're going to lose a finger. You're going to this. You're going to that. But right then, all of a sudden, it's like, nope, that's what this is now. It doesn't grow back. That's permanent. Okay, those are some real physical repercussions. Because I was actually talking, this has come up a few times recently with other people I was talking to about how, you know, nobody's been punched in the face anymore. You know, I'm like, well, I get that. But I think that that's just like physical repercussions for your actions, getting punched in the face. I think you can get the same kind of shit out of driving like an idiot and rolling your car, or going out in the snow ill-dressed, you know what I mean, and really having to struggle to stay warm. There's lots of different ways that you can have that physical struggle to get that same sort of respect for what the consequences are, without someone else having to have their shit involved in it, because with them then it's twisted because it's like, well, I'm teaching you a lesson or fucking whatever.
When we think about justice system, I think this is an important thing. That the idea of a justice system is to reform somebody that they understand that what they did was wrong, or to instill them with like the consequences, and ideally they understand how they hurt another individual. That would be the great repercussion, is that you understand how what you did affected another person. But we live in a society and a justice system, I think, which is very punitive. They want to punish you for what you did wrong. They want to hurt you, and that should teach you, as opposed to the reformative justice system, to heal the injury as opposed to punish the deed. And I think that's a model of like religion. You know, that the whole trip about if you do wrong, I'm sending you to hell. It's not like if you do wrong, I'm going to teach you why it was wrong. I'm going to punish you for that. And then that whole idea came into, you know, family. You know, you punish the child that's done wrong. Spare the rod, spoil the child idea. And then it carries over into the justice system, where we punish the people that have done wrong as opposed to healing them. You know, and I think if we actually looked at what went wrong, the trauma that was caused, and healing the trauma, then all of that other stuff will just kind of work itself out. But, you know, I guess that's just where we're at. You know, losing your finger is a pretty significant lesson. You know, don't do that again. You know what I mean? Right. But now if somebody else said, hey, you do that again, I'm taking your finger off. You know, that's, I don't know.
It's different, right?
Yeah. It is.
Well, and I think that's why that concept of like religion doesn't work sometimes, because the idea with it is that I'm going to tell you what the repercussions of this are going to be, so don't do it. And you go, yeah, but is it? You know what I mean? Are those really going to be the repercussions for me? And then you go and do it, and you go, fuck, they were. And so having that explained to you why it got there would be nice, but I think that's kind of the idea behind it. It's like an operations manual a lot of times, right? Like, don't do these things to your car or it's going to fucking blow up. And then you're like, yeah, but how long can I go without oil?
But is it a theoretical operations manual? If it was just saying, oh, this is going to happen, but then there's 200 people that have driven their car like that and nothing happened, well, that theory isn't necessarily holding water anymore.
No, fair enough, but that's where the physical repercussions in the real world come back in, right? Like, if you don't believe in not killing your neighbor, okay, well, then kill your neighbor and see how that all works out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then you get to the physical repercussions of that. And that's when it changes.
I have a dangerous philosophy of life.
You have to have them done to you.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like, that's just it. I've got a dangerous philosophy of life where do what thou wilt if you accept the consequences of what you're doing. Now, I've had to deal with the consequences of the shit that I did, and now I've got a new program that I basically follow based off of the pitfalls and the consequences of the stuff that I've done, you know, ending up stitched up, ending up in the hospital, ending up in, you know, rehabs and stuff like that. All of those have been consequences of my actions, but I don't necessarily know if they were done as a punishment. But then there's people out there that choose to be monsters. You know, there's a serial killer named Carl Panzram. He's one of the worst, and like, the guy was raised strictly religious, you know, beaten for not being religious enough by his family. And then first chance he got to be evil, he realized that nothing happened to him, and he could just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it.
There was no instantaneous justice or repercussions. Yeah.
So when you remove these structures of what are the consequences, what are you free to do? You know what I mean? Now, I'm not going to speculate on what his internal environment was like, because I imagine he's probably got some real conflict and pain going on inside of him as a result of the consequences of his choices. But I think that the goal of a punishment system... Oh, and this guy ended up in jail and beaten, chained to walls, starved, you know. He's the most ridiculous story. There's a book. It's called Panzram, Panzram. And... man, it's horrific. And it's his autobiography he wrote before he was executed. And the guy apparently, you know, forcibly sodomized over 1,000, you know, boys and men. And when he went to jail...
And this was in his words.
Yeah, in his words. And like
and that's the stuff he'll talk about. You know?
Killed over 20.
All those monsters still have monsters.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And and that's just it. And so this guy was the product and the result of the worst trauma some of the worst trauma you could imagine being put on somebody. So it's almost like this stuff creates a monster. But that's that big struggle.
See, that gets cosmic, right? What do you put your energy into? Right? If you put your energy into something, well, you're going to get it back, and sometimes it's magnified, right? And
malignant,
fucking right, yeah. When you're doing it like that,
I talked to my therapist about this. That trauma is sort of like a sliver, you know. It gets shoved inside part of you, right? And if it doesn't get addressed, if it doesn't get opened up and cleaned out early enough, it becomes infected and it becomes toxic. And so that's just it. And I don't think if that toxic thing gets treated soon enough, it manifests in all kinds of horrible ways, right? Sure. And that's where a guy like him...
sepsis.
Well, yeah,
short 100%. You get it all.
All of it. Alopecia, your hair falls out, you know, all kinds of things. But, so yeah, I don't know.
Can't do math good.
It's a tough one where we're living... Well, the U.S. is a lot worse, where that's like, yeah, we caught you with marijuana, you're doing 18 years. So, like, fuck off.
Well, it depends, right? And you jump across this one imaginary line. And it's like, no, it's a $20 fine. You know?
That's yeah.
A little consistency there. That's a tough one to navigate.
That one really bugs me, the marijuana laws, especially with the new legalization, because that kind of says they were never harmful. It was never harmful. There was a political agenda the entire time to put innocent people in jail for a fucking plant. And I don't even smoke. I just think that's the most ridiculous law in the fucking world.
Couldn't agree more. And I do smoke as much as humanly possible.
No,
so if anyone wants to sponsor the show, just let me know.
Yeah, it's legal. We're allowed gifts.
I can finally talk like this. I don't give a shit. Yeah?
Gift card.
I still feel weird though. I feel like I have to be like low key all the time. Like if I'm smoking out in the yard, I'm always like, "Oh, sorry guys, I don't want to blow it in your yard." And Buddy was like, "You know, it's legal, right?" And I'm like, "I know, but like, I still don't feel like I should be able to do this. You know,
Yeah.
Still don't feel like I should be able to just stand there and just smoke a joint and have that be cool. Like, which is nice. It's glorious, but."
Just wait till people are tripping balls everywhere. Mushrooms become decriminalized or something. Next thing you know.
Board. Microdosing. I'm talking like 3-day work week, and let's all microdose, and let's all fucking change the landscape of everything.
Well, you know, I do microdose, even though it's gray legally, but it's medicinal. And there's enough like evidence, I think, that says like this is a medicinal thing. Yeah. I choose to do this instead of prescription meds. You know, it gives me some insight. It gives me some depth. I think about like deeper things. But at the same time, I also pay attention to the consequence of my actions a lot more.
Yep.
You know?
Well, and I think that's the core of why people have like a bad trip on mushrooms, you know? Because I find, like just as one example, psychedelics, I find with myself, like if I'm not in the right headspace, you know, or I'm not in the right physical space, it goes awry. You know what I mean? It's not that thing doing it to me. It's me not interacting with it, right? But if I go in with like, you know, this is my intention. I kind of I want to feel better. You know what I mean? I want to have a new perspective. I want to figure out where I need to go next or whatever.
You almost make it a ritual.
Exactly, right? The more intention you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, right? And again, if you're going into it with, I want to escape and I don't want to deal with this, well, that's the thing that doesn't.
You might be having a deal.
You
with
have to face it. I've had that, like where it's like, no, like I know it's coming and it's all you and it's just thoughts, but I'm like, nope, not going to be able to get away from this one. I'm going to have to hold on and ride this thing out and probably throw up partway through. So.
Ride the lightning.
Yeah, well, that'd be easier, I would think.
Yeah,
ride some lightning.
Well, that's kind of a big thing because I've had bad trips, I've had phenomenal trips. I've accidentally hero dosed. Another one of those stories is we went to a punk rock gig, me and my buddy Uday, and we took a buddy's bag. He sold us, I think, like an eighth. We're gonna take like maybe 1.5 grams each or something like that. Nothing much, just a little bit of mushrooms. Enjoyed the night. Mm-hmm. So Uday takes his pinch and puts it in his mouth, and I empty the rest of the bag in my mouth. We swash it all down. We take the bag back to Buddy, and he's like, "So where's all that acid that was in there?" And I'm like, "What acid?" And
where's all that acid that's in there?
And it's a debate whether it was the general consensus between like 8 to 12 hits, and that was a transformative experience that night. I wandered around.
Are you okay now?
Oh, I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Still have some residuals.
And I remember wandering around.
The walls melt just a little bit,
and people are like, "That's the guy that took the acid," you know. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the guy that fucking took all this acid." But so that's kind of what they would consider a hero dose, right? And it's funny. I remember just previously the bass player.
Dose though. Sorry though. Like if you do it by accident, that's like Evil Knievel jumping the Grand Canyon because he was drunk.
Yeah,
I went the wrong way and I
wasn't prepared for it. But shit was happening.
I did it though.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah. And I remember what was it? He plays in Propaganda now. Todd. He used to play in a band from Regina, Assmaster, and he had turned me on to another band, a New York hardcore band called Judge. And I'd been listening to Judge a lot.
Hardcore.
Yeah, straight edge. And actually, he had done a magazine, a little zine that I'd been reading. So that was the night I read Todd's zine, and I started listening to Judge a lot more. And I went straight edge for quite a while on that one because it was just like, man, water only cleans the outside of you. You got an inside that needs to be clean too. I remember thinking that trying to shower away the acid. I'm like, fuck, water only cleans the outside. But yeah,
there you go. That's a good trip.
Yeah. Well, that was a transformative one. But I think that a lot of the bad trips and when people start worrying about like ghost people or shadow people and like the aliens, tinfoil hat shit, I really believe now that that's like part of themselves, their shadow, their Jungian shadow that they don't want to deal with. That they still feel there's part of themselves they need to hide. And if they're hiding it from themselves, they have this feeling of an external thing that's trying to bug them or to tape them or to surveil them or to catch them because they haven't necessarily consolidated something that's happening inside themselves, whether it's a trauma or memories or just aspects of themselves that they're hiding from themselves that they don't want
that's their visual or psychological manifestation of what they've been doing this whole time. They've been hiding it from themselves. This thing creeps out and it's a thing that they've probably used as a crutch lots to, like, well, that's why I can't do this because I've got this thing. Well, this thing comes up, it's like, hey, you got me, let's hang out, man.
Whether or not you want to. Like when you're on psychedelics, you don't have a choice, you know. That shit's coming out, you know. During your non-tripping life or your non-depth life or your non-self-work life, you can run around and be whatever persona you want to be, but when you're balls...
Sorry, Pat just made air quotes if anyone's wondering.
Yeah. Persona. Whatever mask you want to wear, you could choose. But I think when you go into those states, whether it's DMT or ayahuasca or mushrooms or LSD, those masks become very temporary. They get torn away. And a lot of people are like, no, I want to hold on to that mask. I need to have it in front of me. It's like, blah, but all this stuff is leaking out, you know? You warmed up the burrito too much. All the cheese is melting, you know?
Well, what are you, right? When you remove the facade, what am I? And I built this whole thing on the outside. Well, I mean, that's kind of how I feel like my last year went. Like, I feel like I've just... It's everything's new to me now because my life changed so dramatically and I'm in a different city and I'm doing different work and I'm, you know, it's all... Yeah, I don't want to say like a fresh start because I feel like fresh isn't the right description of it, but it's a wiping away of a lot of the past.
Well, I've had a lot of I talk about my nervous breakdowns, and I've had a lot of like crazy transformative experiences, and like when those things happened, I was stone cold sober. You know what I mean? And when that stuff happens when you're sober, you're like, what the fuck is happening, right?
Well, sorry, just to jump in real quick, I feel like a lot of people, that's if you're of a religious nature, that's when you start to think like, well, no, God's putting me on this path. You know, when that kind of shit happened, and I connect with that. You know, just because I had something similar where I felt that, and I'm like, you know what? If I was a religious person, I would have thought that God gave me that answer because it felt as though it came out of the blue. I know I thought it up. I know I got to there on my own. But if
when you're experiencing it, it's reality.
Exactly right. But after looking back, I'm like, no, I know that's mine. But I would think if I was of that mindset, I absolutely would have thought God gave that to me, or whatever your higher power is.
Whatever it is, like, you know, if you've got a scientific-minded brain, you might think that you are getting radio signals. If you've got
there you go, aliens put this into my fucking head.
Aliens
if that's
are
what
out
you're
there,
looking
and that's
for,
the
right?
communication. Yeah. Tinfoil hat under the bridge. If you've got, if you've been indoctrinated or chosen a belief system that was like a religious base, that religious experience is going to happen. So I think these transformative experiences have happened for a very, very long time, but they've gone through. I guess the cultural difference, as opposed to once upon a time, it was all like we have saints hearing the voice of angels. You know, you've got shamans hearing the voice of animal spirits. You've got all that stuff because I've done a lot of research on this. But nowadays, in the technological age, you have increasingly people thinking that they've been surveilled by black helicopters, or you know that they're getting alien, information. So who knows what it really is? You know, short circuiting in the brain or something more is really debatable because we really don't understand consciousness as much as we like to think.
Well, and it's interesting you kind of make that connection too, because a lot of those people in previous times, you know, they were deified. This is someone who gave us this thing, right? Because of their connection to whatever that was, whereas now we're saying that's a deficiency.
Yeah.
But you look at like Nikola Tesla. You know, there's someone who socially barely functioned in society and gave us some of our greatest technological advancements, you know, like...
In Nikola Tesla's autobiography, he talked about doing his inventions. He designed it, ran the blueprints, created a model, ran the model, and worked out the problems in the model all mentally before he ever did it in real life. That he had whatever ability that allowed him to do it. And in his autobiography, he also talks about how he got these inspirations from what he felt was an external source. Which is really, really strange.
Yeah, he would tap into it, right?
Yeah. He's like,
and a lot of times, I know it was a lot of times during... when most people would be at like a heightened sense of maybe even almost delirium because you'd been up for 30 hours working in lab or whatever, and these things are coming
sleep
to them, right?
deprivation
So
does that kind of stuff.
you're getting to these different levels of viewpoint just by doing whatever that does to your body. Same thing shaman have been doing, and you'd go on a spirit quest and stay awake for 3 days. And
yeah, the yogis in India say that sleep is one of those things that like you don't oversleep. In fact, the less sleep you have, the more likely you're going to have a spiritual revelation. Which is really, really interesting. And now that I'm doing the hypnotherapy course, all of these things are kind of meshing together. It's like, okay, there is 100% an altered state of consciousness. And that altered state of consciousness 100% can move your reality. It can alter your subjective experience of reality. Now, my personal belief is whatever that consciousness state is the same thing we do in meditation. It's the same thing we do in, like ritual. It's the same thing we do when we access with psychedelics and
people
stuff.
run long distance.
Yeah, it's all the
that
same altered state of consciousness.
Some physical thing you're doing that's like making these triggers happen.
Yeah, and then when you do in that state of consciousness, whatever you choose to program or whatever your subconscious has already been programmed with manifests into your reality, right? So I'm very leery now about what media I allow to program myself with, because, that narrative is constantly being drilled into your subconscious. The more you hear the same story, that story becomes your reality, or becomes the reality that you see when you're out and about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something to be conscious of, because when you're not aware of it, all of a sudden you'll find yourself annoyed about things that you're like, well, I was never annoyed about that. But it's like, well, why am I though? Well, because I've been told for the last 3 weeks of this program I've been watching, this is something I'm supposed to be annoyed about, right?
Yeah.
And would I be if I was subjectively looking at it? Yeah, usually not.
I see a culture that is being programmed to live in fear and paranoia.
This?
Period. Which one? Whose culture is that? And and we don't really have a lot of hope and connectivity and brotherhood and unity. We see a lot of media that encourages divisiveness and like fear.
Well, brotherhood. I mean, there was that group downtown on the weekend. Sons of Odin, I believe they were called. Bunch of brotherhood.
That happened?
Fuck yeah. A bunch of them clowns are downtown in front of the Besbro this weekend.
Jesus Christ.
Hanging out, giving people a hard time.
I love those guys. I love watching examples of people that think they are the genetic elite. To really look at these are the individuals that feel that they are the genetic elite, huh? Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah.
Right on.
I'll keep that in mind, bro.
Can't have an argument with that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
Beautiful physical specimen like that.
Jesus, man, I've been to the gym, and and I've been to a few gyms. Some of them like athletic gyms, university students go there, and some of the athletic black guys, both in and out of the
Cut the
locker
camera.
room.
No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Both in and out of the locker room.
Turn the cameras back on. He's talking locker room, folks. This is when the paywall hits. It's another $5 you want to stay on for the rest.
And I'd love to take one of these, like, I don't know, Sons of Onan clan fucking clowns, and just like here and here. Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
buddy.
explain to me how you are superior.
Yeah, because you managed to.
I don't even want to hear it. Yeah, just explain to me how you know. Like, actually, just hold your head underwater until you stop kicking. You should do that, and then we'll talk.
Well, fuck, man. The only thing that you were superior in is coercing a system that benefited you, that put you to the top of a pyramid.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Nice job at breeding into the system that bred you in so you can keep doing it.
Yeah, and then you say,
Slow
well,
clap. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I created a system that put me on top, so therefore I am the top of the system. Like, no, because if you cut it all like one smooth slate, I'd like. Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily believe that we're all equal. I think that there's some people that are. I'm short. I'm chubby. This is reality.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's better or worse, but there's definitely not all equal. Maybe we equalize in different areas. But don't go pretending that like one specific ethnicity is superior, especially if you're just like toothless bro chugging beers down with your homeboys, fuck yeah, fuck them, man, they're stealing my jobs. Like, fuck you, you don't even want that job. Your kid won't go work at Tim Hortons.
Yeah, I see you down there 3 times a week banging on like, give me a goddamn job.
Yeah,
I
I just
got my
wanna
resume right
work.
here.
Fuck.
I wore a suit for Christ's sakes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Not today.
Anyways.
What are we looking at here?
Oh yeah, what do we got?
50 minutes or so? Cool, let's keep rolling
Are
there.
we at 5-0?
Yeah.
Holy shit, time flies when you're talking shit, hey? I want to talk about meditation. You do meditation, I do meditation. What kind do you do? What do you... How do you approach your meditation?
Well, okay, I've not been like as militant with it as I should be lately, but I do
Militant meditation.
militant meditation. Well, I mean, right? Drink water, meditate, right? Those shit you should do every day, and I don't always do it every day. But when I'm in a routine of it, like I do, like to sit and meditate right before I go to work, and even if it's just to kind of picture the clearest and best way I would like my day to go, like instead of focusing on the shitty aspects of my drive or how customers are going to be or whatever the fuck I'm going to have to deal with.
You project an idea.
I try to project, yeah, exactly, as best I can in a broad scope, and then I try to break that down and fine tune it a little bit. Like, not only do I want my drive to work to go great, I want my coffee to be mixed right, and I want to be listening to a podcast I want to listen to, and I want to avoid the pothole on fucking Preston that I hit every fucking time I drive down. Like, do that kind of stuff, and then when I go into it, well, then I've already played this game once. So I kind of know where the moves are going to come. And then when somebody throws a fucking curveball at me and a truck tries to T-bone me, I'm already kind of loose and in the zone, and I don't have tunnel vision on like, I hit that pothole again, and I got to go to work. And, that helps strip a lot of that away for me. And those I would usually do just sitting as quietly as I could. And then in the evenings when I meditate, I like to put something on as a background noise. Like either... like those Tibetan singing bowls, or I'll just find something on YouTube that's a tonal whatever frequency and do that. And I've tried a bunch of different methods, like using like the Om method, where you try to like
mantra.
You try to visualize vibrating your whole skull so it's at all the same frequency with that noise and getting it consistent. And you're breathing nice and smooth, and then kind of letting it go from there. So I did a couple different things, and then I will do it like during my day, especially if I catch myself feeling anxious or stressed. I'll try to, if I can, just close my eyes and just sit still for a second. Or if I'm driving and I can't, I'll try to get into a similar state. Like the wintertime, I
do when I drive. I just like close my eyes, sit still for a second.
What I like to do that's an
horns.
alternative to that, yeah, until I feel rumbles or horns, or I'm upside down again. No, but what I like, especially in the wintertime, is I'll just try to focus on the beauty of what I see. And usually, a lot of times in the wintertime, you'll start, especially in the day, you'll notice like the snow just fucking sparkling like diamonds. When you didn't while you're driving, you're kind of paying attention to everything else, and you kind of take it in, and you're like, oh, fuck, that's gorgeous, So just stuff like that kind of grounds me for a second, just puts me back in the moment, and it's like a little mini meditate for me. And it's like, what you're worrying about really doesn't fucking matter at this minute, and you've already worried about it. You can work on it later. Like, for now, just fucking relax and tune back into that podcast you're listening to, or fucking song that's playing, and be in that.
Recenter.
Yeah, it helps me, but it's tough. I got to catch myself. Well, Friday, like I should have done it Friday. I had a fucking rough day Friday. Like I was just feeling down, just like anxiety hit. And I was super depressed, and I started thinking, like, I didn't have my dogs. I just took them back last week, so I don't have my dogs right now. And
You
then,
have shared visitation.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it would have been a year ago this weekend, I think, that my dad died, because I'm not 100% certain, because I can't remember what the date was, because we never had a ceremony or anything, and I just don't remember. I can't remember. It was the end of May some fucking time, but I'm pretty sure it would have been this last weekend. So that kind of hit me, and then I'm like, I don't have my brother anymore. And it was just so fucking heavy. And I should have just meditated, or I should have, a bunch of the guys were getting on Zoom to bullshit for a bit. I should have done that. I even went up to the car, like, I'm going to go sit in the car on the passenger seat and smoke dope with the window open, because I can sit outside then and not be in the wind, and I'll go on Zoom on my phone. And instead I just sat out there and cried for about an hour. But I was just like, I just couldn't talk to anybody, But that being said, looking back,
You always got me, right?
well, I know. That's for me though. It's because I know I've got such a good support system that if I do need to talk to somebody, there's always somebody there. I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I want to, I just can't do it. But if I'm aware of that and I can sit and even meditate for a bit, it helps clear and work through that shit.
Meditation with me, I've gone through a whole bunch of different styles of meditation, some formally, less formally. I went through a Taoist meditation, which was like a visualization when I was doing Tai Chi a lot. And they talk about like kind of chakra work on like an energy vortex, and I don't know if I buy that. It's a visualization, you can do that. But then I got into Zazen meditation, and then from formal Zen meditation, I moved.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to know what I wanted to know about meditation. I'm just kidding. I'm a dickhead, eh? So keep telling me.
From formal meditation, or from formal Zen meditation, I went towards mindfulness, and all it is trying to breathe, paying attention to your breath in and your breath out, and stuff will pop up, and you recognize it as popping up, and it's just like little manifestations of things, and you say, "Hey, nice to be here. See you around," and you let it come and go. And I've learned through that process of practicing, like, just being present and not letting things catch my attention and play with the idea, which distracts me from just being present in that moment, that it carries over to life. That like shit comes at me, and I can either look at it two ways. I can get all caught up in it and like want to play with it and get all like stressed about it, or it can come and I recognize it for what it is and it goes. If something pops up in meditation, I'm like, oh, that's anger right there, or that's lust right there, and I'm like, cool. It comes and it goes. You know what I mean? But if I sit there and I mull it over, then my ego's playing with it and stuff like that. So the practice, I don't force myself to do it, although I really enjoy it. It gets to the point where I'm like, this is putting my ego on a timeout. The same way I'd sit in a hot bath if I really need to relax after a workout. Well, after a period of stress or anxiety or having to deal with mandatory drama in life, getting a time to do some meditation is sort of like that mentally, where it's just like, whew, let it go.
Well, and I think the most important thing you said in that whole fucking thing was mindfulness. I think that a lot of people, they want to get into meditation and they're like, well, I don't know how to, or I don't know how to shut my brain off, or I don't know what program I should use. Just start with mindfulness. Just start there. Try and be mindful. Try and just sit and be mindful of your surroundings for 5 minutes a day, and you'll be meditating.
Yes.
And then like,
and
I think you can get to the same thing doing like repetitive exercises, like a stationary bike or like treadmill or that kind of shit. That if that's your meditating, then do that. Get into that zone and let it flow. Like I think there's something for anybody if they want to. It's just go on fucking line and find out what works for you. I think.
Well, yeah,
try a bunch of different shit.
Well, a lot of our shit comes from our ego jumping around our head, giving us like information that may or may not be accurate. And if you can give that, it's like the Asians call it the monkey mind. Like, it's all over the place. Look, squirrels, and if you can take
monkeys
that,
eat squirrels?
Yeah, right. I guess so. and if you could take that and put it in a timeout on the corner, and it might chatter and it might yell at you and it might try and do whatever it can to get your attention, but you just kind of dial it back and you say, cool, thanks for your input, and I'm coming back here. I'm paying attention to my breath going in and out, or paying attention to where my breath goes in my nose. My lungs are half full, my lungs are full. Now there's a transition. My lungs are half full, my lungs are empty. There's a transition, and paying attention to that moment, being in the moment. It's weird because then you get into dimensional stuff, right? Where the past.
Sorry, Pat just crossed his hands in the next one.
Yes, dimensions, where the past meets the present, or where the past meets the future is the moment of the present, and trying to stay as still or trying to be in the moment, not remembering the past, not anticipating the future, but being in that dimensional shift where the past meets the future. That is a plane as thin as like, you know, a first dimensional plane, right? Or
Well, and that's a
second
flow
dimensional.
state that like musicians get to, martial artists get to, that when you're doing it and you're done the thing you're doing. Well, how did it go? No idea. I just
You
flowed
tell
through
me.
that. Yeah, exactly. I was just in the moment and doing it, and that's what happened. Yeah.
Or how did you do that so fluidly? I remember one time tripping on mushrooms playing against my buddy Bucky with foosball. And I wasn't even really playing foosball, but I wasn't missing a goddamn thing. I was stuffing everything he tried to shoot, and every angle I was just like, bang, 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 bang. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? This is just happening. And he was
Crowd gathers round.
yeah, he was getting frustrated with me. And I'm like, holy fuck, I'm not even playing. It's kind of playing itself.
He's doing it. He's really doing it.
And that was one of my first experiences of flow, you know what I mean? Or you know, even when we'd be fucking around in the martial arts class doing the stick and knife sparring, you know what I mean? That is flow, because like right now I have to be here right now. I can't be thinking what should I have done or what will I do if he does this. Yeah,
you can for a second, and then you're gonna get a stick right across the head.
yeah, right. So he's moving, I need to react, you know. But or I'm moving and he needs to react, or she, whoever you're playing with, right? I also have to apologize if you hear a bunch of clicking. I've got a gut and we're on a bondage bed here. So, you know, these little rings attached to the side, they're clicking a lot. So that's what's going on there.
He's just gently grazing his girth up and down the table.
Yeah, you like that?
That paywall started, right? Let's get gross. Shit. Yeah, no, fucking meditation. I recommend it. In whatever way it works for you. Make it fit.
Well, and you know, once you get that mindfulness down, you get to that certain brain state that accesses the bridge between your subconscious and your conscious mind, right? And that's when you can get into what the hypnotists call scripts, or more traditional systems call visualized meditation, like playing out your day ideally, and stuff like that. And where you can take
It's
that,
a big deal in sports. Sports
Yes.
psychology, it's all about visualization.
yeah, and you could take that time once you get to that state to program whatever you want in your subconscious. Like I've been reading a lot on affirmations and stuff like that. And this one program that I was looking into, they talk about accentuating gratitude and presence. So taking a dedicated time and telling yourself, I am right here and I am savoring this moment, and this is what I enjoy about the moment. And just doing inventory. I like the taste of this coffee and the feeling of the sun on my skin, and playing with my dogs. Just being present and enjoying that moment and savoring that. But then also taking a 5-minute break out of your day and saying, these are the things I'm really happy about in my life. And those two little affirmation exercises really will make you a happier and more joyful individual in your life. And it doesn't matter. You're paying attention to where you are now and what you're thankful for, as opposed to all the garbage that you might be dragging with you from the past. You know, you're letting that boulder
Well,
go.
and I think that's the only way you can truly enjoy anything in life, is you have to be in the moment with it. Because if you're not, like you said, you're anxious and you're thinking about the future, or you're thinking about the past and maybe your regrets or whatever else it is. You're just not engaging with it, and that's all our existence is these individual moments, because everything else is imaginary. Once again, even just what happened 3 seconds ago, your perspective, my perspective, we talk about it, the lighting's different, we're going to see it differently. That's just how it is, right? So the only thing that's real is what is right now. And if you're worried about what's going to happen after this is done, or still living in what happened 10 years ago, you can never enjoy what you're doing.
Well, that's time traveling. You know, in your brain.
Yeah, right?
And it's
Shitty time travel.
It's an inaccurate version. Like,
yeah.
well, apparently, like my partner, she told me that when you remember things, you're not remembering them as they were. You're remembering the last time you remembered it. And
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're constantly revising your memories about stuff, and it's not an explicit memory, it's an implicit memory. Explicit means an accurate, objective version of it. Implicit is your emotional reaction and your how you felt a situation.
And that's usually what we remember. We don't necessarily.
More.
I actually just had this conversation yesterday, and it's not that we usually even remember the words of what we said, but we know what our intention was. And a lot of times when people
Or
come
how
back
we
to you
felt, how
with your
somebody else
words, they
treated
go, "Well,
us."
yeah, but you said this," and you're like, "Well, okay, I don't remember saying that, but I remember feeling this when I said it, and that's what I meant." So a lot of that gets fucked up in the interpretation then.
Yeah, so 100%. And it's the same thing with time traveling in the future. And we joke about this. I'm like, so that's one potential reality when you've got anxiety about. But, you know, you can make whatever choices right now to either go towards that or go away from that. And like, it's like a huge fan. You can choose whichever in the Rolodex future you want to go to if you choose to do that.
Yeah, well, as long as you're making the choice. Otherwise, you're still going to go that same distance, but something else is going to make the choice, or somebody else is going to make the choice and push you into this, or whatever.
Yeah. From the situation that you found, I like the analogy of a tree. You start at a root, and there's all these branches you can take, and wherever you end up is where you end up. You can't really go back, but you could choose what branch from that point you take. You know, and but your choices are limited by the choices you made in the past. To me, that's karma. That's the consequence of our reality. It's like, well, yeah, the life that I lived led me right here, right now. Now, the choices I make right here, right now can decide where I go from here. You know what I mean? And I can choose whatever I want to do. I could sit there and, you know, just masturbating to guns and ammo in my basement, you know, or I can go outside.
I was wondering what that stat
Yeah, exactly.
about.
And don't touch them, they're sticky. Or I can go outside and live life. You know, I can do whatever I want, and that's just it. And we can write our own future, I think, if we choose to.
Well, and what you're saying too is, and it's crazy to me, is that the idea that if you want to, you could just clean slate that shit right now. You could just erase everything from the past. But you know, other people are going to hold us accountable, right? They're still going to have their. Yeah, right. Sorry. I guess that's what I'm saying is in our heads. We always think that, right? Like, well, yeah, but they remember this or that or whatever, and they hold a grudge about this. When it's like, but do they though? Like. Again, my old man was a good example of
amends
this.
where you can.
He fucking, like, he thought he had grudges with everybody. You know what I mean? And eventually gets to a point, like, you know, you're the only one involved in this, right? Like, everybody else is just walking by going, what's he fucking mad about today? You know? And he's like, we've still got a score to settle. And I was like, you?
Yeah, the Tibetans call that a hell state. That's when you're living in hell. And when you can get by that stuff and you start with a clean slate, that's your heaven state, right? So when you decide that I am not a slave to my past anymore and you can choose anything of the future and just let the chips fall where they may, you're starting anew. And I think that
But that's that concept of punishment too, though. Like, we still feel like if we fucked up, we do have to still punish ourselves. I know for myself, a lot of times I'm like, I don't think I'll get a day where I can just fucking sit and play video games and do nothing, you know? And I'm like,
am I wasting that day?
Did I earn this?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And then I'll agonize over it for most of the day and kind of like pick at other little things, and all of a sudden my day's gone by, and I didn't even do that then. I didn't even do that thing that I was like agonizing over because I felt guilty for doing it when I knew I had other things. So I did a half-assed job on other stuff. Didn't do either of them fucking well.
All you accomplished was feeling guilty?
Yeah, and for something that no one else is going to apply. No one else is going to come into the fucking room at the end of the day and go, well, I can't believe you fucking sat here and played video games all day with your life, making your own decisions, you know?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but...
Well, I'm at the point in my life where self-care is a priority.
Sure.
And if I need or I feel like and I want to have, 3 cookies and play video games all day, I'm not going to spend my time beating myself up for it. You know what I mean? I might decide that tomorrow's a workout day and I'm not going to have any cookies or whatever. Or maybe I spent enough time yesterday playing video games spoiling myself. Today's time to buckle down and clean out the gutters or any of the things that I was putting off. Now, I think that's a balance. And a lot of people, me at least, I've got this real rigid attitude about discipline. I need to do this, and if I'm not doing this, I'm not doing good enough. Now, that could be my cultural conditioning. It could be residue from my parent, child relationships. It could be my attitudes towards work. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think honestly, like for you, sorry, you can jump into this, but I think you really do enjoy a challenge. You like a little bit of confrontation. You like a little bit of stress and strain. So getting into something like the rope tying or Cali, you didn't do them to just like, well, I want to casually do this and have it be a fun thing. You're like, no, I'm going to get so good at this that I can teach other people.
Hyper obsessed.
And so you drive into it, right? And I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing. I think that's just someone who likes to fucking see how far they can push themselves in whatever that environment is.
I read in this book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life.
Available on our website.
Yeah, Daniel G. Yeah,
we don't have a website.
Anyways, he talks in one part about people with ADD tend to be conflict seeking because that conflict activates their prefrontal cortex, which is normally underactive. So when they've got that constant rah, 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 and there's some back and forth dynamic or challenges, that brain part that is seeking activation gets it, and sometimes it's a positive challenge, sometimes it's a negative challenge. And I find that very, very interesting because we're both pretty ADD individuals. You never guess, huh?
That's a bit of a personal attack.
Is it?
Not what I signed up
offended
for.
by that. Well, the first podcast we did, I got some feedback, and I'm like, no, we're not on cocaine. We are not on cocaine.
Do we need a doctor or do we need a couple doctors?
We're just very ADD individuals that have done our best.
I'm not even drinking today. I'm drinking fucking Red Bulls today. So
Yeah, what's that? That should be calming you down,
right? Yeah.
making me focus. Yeah, but I think that's an interesting thing. I think my whole life I've been ADD or God knows what kind of pathologies they dump on me. But I refused medication. I'm just going to adopt my lifestyle towards not having a memory, having a whole bunch of projects started, having a whole bunch of things with little follow through, all that
Well,
stuff.
and those are all good coping mechanisms for not dealing with trauma too. Constantly having 100 projects on the go.
That's a good
I don't
point.
have to deal with my demons. I'm busy building a bike, or I'm busy painting a wall, or fucking whatever,
Tying
whatever
ladies
the fuck
up.
else you do. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Hypersexual behavior.
How many times you got to cut this tape?
But the other element I think is when you meditate, you have to be still with yourself. So sometimes that ego chirping monkey from the corner starts spitting ugly shit that you've been avoiding looking at, and you kind of have to be there present through the ugliness. And that ugliness, sometimes it hurts, but so does going to the gym, and you come out stronger for it. So.
Yeah, right. It's like going to it's like a little emotional gym, little spiritual gym.
Bailing on a skateboard and you get good at the trick eventually,
Yeah.
You don't
Die trying. Cripple trying.
Isn't that it? Cripple try.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else we got? What else you want?
Oh, well, I think I am going to mention... So, we were talking about maybe having some guests in the future here. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to have a guest on the next one. I think Mr. Sean Cuthand is going to be making an appearance.
Very cool.
So, anybody's listening, get out and check out Sean's stuff. He's doing stand-up. And
He's supposed to be funny.
we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
We're going to put him to the test on that one.
Exactly.
Make me laugh.
I got a bunch of physical challenges for him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. They're very sexual.
Should we take these cameras elsewhere?
Well, we're going to put them elsewhere. Yeah. We're going deep on this. But yeah, no, I think we're going to have Sean on next, so I'm looking forward to that. And any suggestions anybody's got for people around Saskatoon, you want to have them sit down and talk to us, I'd love to hear. I'm not maybe going to do them, but I'd like to hear.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I've dealt with a whole bunch of crazy shit in my life, and I've learned from media people and other people. They love to get those sound bites that they can use to further a political agenda. You said this at this time, right?
Good.
Like,
Well, yeah, use this for any political agendas you have, by all means. Please exploit the shit out of us.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's
Wrong.
what I want. Elon Musk. Let's talk about Elon Musk.
Sure.
Because we've had some pretty interesting debates on all this stuff that comes into play with Elon Musk. On my Facebook feed, basically, Elon Musk says that we need to merge right now, or as soon as possible, our neural links, our neural synapses with artificial intelligence, if we ever hope as organic biological organisms to keep up with the emergence of artificial general intelligence. Not even counting artificial superintelligence. And there's some debate. Some people think he's the worst guy in the world, and other people think he's kind of like the tech messiah. I'm up in the air. I really am up in the air because, you and I both are really interested in artificial intelligence and transhumanism. And but at the same time, I think he does he has the potential to do a lot of altruistic stuff with his money. He's not a dummy. But I'm waiting.
Well, and it's interesting too that he's recently sold off all of his properties and is renting a house now instead of owning any. And
I didn't know that.
And he actually talked a little bit about it on the Joe Rogan podcast recently. And I don't know why he didn't really. He was kind of vague about it,
he's vague about a lot of things. Fucking Elon.
One of the guys who seems to kind of have the inside track on what's going on all the time is like, no, I'm just dumping all my property for no reason. I'm not making everything liquid so I can just leave the country at a moment's notice. Nothing like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, aren't you though?
Except the underground compound I built under LA.
That's what he's been.
I'm calling it a freeway.
Telling everybody it's his hyperloop. Hey, in the meantime, he's like, no, this is where we're gonna live.
Yeah, a little bit. I wonder about that. I was mentioning earlier. I think a guy like Elon Musk, and I'm surprised he hasn't done it yet. He's in a position to kind of finish what Volkswagen was created for. And I know it's not a popular. No, I know it's not a popular thing that Hitler...
No, I love this. I love that. That's the line you go, yeah.
In World War II, Hitler and Porsche, I think it was, came up with Volkswagen to create a vehicle, the people's wagon, to create a vehicle affordable to everybody. That's a great qualifying thing. If you can create a communication and transportation and shelter for everybody to make it affordable and quality, that's a huge equalizer for the people. And I think a guy like that is in a position to do something like that. Whether or not he will, who knows? But can you imagine like a vehicle right now if you could buy a new quality rudimentary vehicle for like, let's say $5,000-$10,000? You know, and it's just paid off. Boom, $5,000. There you go. And it would be like those new Ironhead Sportsters they came out with that are actually meant to be customized and chopped. Like you got your base level thing, and it's affordable. Well, yeah, imagine like a guy like that doing that with housing, where anybody can have.
Well, and he's kind of started a little bit with his solar roofing, those. Solar roof tiles that your roof is going to generate energy for you, you know. So yeah, you're talking about an overall betterment of society thing. If everybody's house can generate their own energy they use, and there was just, I should have read more about this. There was just a go ahead, I think, and they're starting to build it now for a little community, I think, in Saskatoon that's a net zero community. So
interesting.
They're gonna, you know, through whatever infrastructure they're gonna put in, whether it's wind or solar.
But how can we make money off of them?
Right? And that's the problem with all this, right? Is because he could absolutely, a guy that smart and people not as smart as him could come up with a very reasonable rudimentary car, like you said, that anybody can manufacture and parts can be interchangeable. But it does that work in the society we live in, where it's like, well, how many units can you sell, right? And
where's the profit margin?
Yeah, and how do we get it so they don't last a long time? We want them to last a short time because we need people buying more of them, right?
What do they call that? Planned obsolescence.
Yes, yeah, right. That's very integral for something like that, because I mean, honestly, you look at cars that were built 50 years ago. The guys are still driving around. You tune them up, you clean them up, and they're still going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's nothing to say that can't happen. And if you have today's technology, why can't it be 150 years that you can have a vehicle just keep running?
Well, you can't tell me with the advance of technology that our manufacturing...
You can't tell me what I can't tell you.
I can tell you what you can't tell me. Anyway, you can't say that, like, with our advance of technology and skill, that we haven't developed the ability for our quality to increase as well. But what we've developed is our ability to profit from it, and the quality is detracted because that profit margin depends on stuff breaking down and buying new shit. I still use, like, I think this is an iPhone 6, right? Or what are they at? 23 now?
Troglodyte.
Yeah, I know. I'm fucking underground dweller.
He's got a DeLorean out front.
Yeah. I got my Fiero. Anyways, so, so I'm rocking an older iPhone. But the thing is, those things break down. There's coding in there to slow it down with every upgrade, so you will need to get the newer model. Like, there's no saying, I think Steve Jobs, when he was kicking around.
Oh, controversial, calling him Jobs. Continue.
Jobs, whatever his fucking name is.
I
didn't know him personally.
No, I like that can be like a whole underground thing. It's like, his name was never Jobs, you pieces of shit. It was always Jobs.
Yeah, well,
we lying to everybody.
We never called each other at home, so, I don't really know.
He calls you Pot, you call him Jobs.
At one time, his stuff was so interchangeable. Like, we got one chord, one streaming thing, then he fucking dies. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, hey, the shareholders have more of an opinion in this, and we need to make some fucking money on this product. Yep. So we're going to introduce all the bells and whistles and take away the functionality of it. Yep. So all of these things, they break down. They're designed to break down. Cars, like 2011 car, it gets over 200,000 kilometers. Psh, good night. Don't even... It's a write-off, pretty much. The warranty isn't there anymore. All the parts need to be replaced.
Well, and even if it could, the value in it is gone. Because the way we keep producing them, right? There's no... You even if they could last forever, the only value in it would be to you to keep having a reliable automobile. But if it's an investment to ever sell...
Isn't that a goal?
Well, that's a core of it too, right? Like, just get a good one and stick with it.
I like shiny status things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
guess, if you got it, right? Because, that's what keeps an economy going too. But just... I think a lot of people try but don't got it.
Like
Your spread
headband.
thin. Yeah, your $70 Supreme headband.
That's the important one.
I already had a bidder on that. He said he'd give you $55 for it.
Fuck, go on buy and sell. Yeah. Fuck, I was so... I go on buy and sell, I'm so tempted to just give commentary. Fuck you. That's mostly it. That's like too long didn't read.
Commentary, yeah.
Too long didn't read. Fuck you. But back to Elon Musk, I really like a guy who's going to introduce an affordable civilian flamethrower. Like, that's fucking crazy. You got $500, you want a flamethrower? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, I do. Yeah. What's the range on that? If it was like reasonable range.
Well, I was watching the thing about that. He was talking about that, and he's like, it's really not a flamethrower. Like, they even advertise it as
like
not
a roofing torch, right?
That's exactly what it is. A modified roofing torch with kind of a cool chassis they put it in.
Yeah.
The end.
If you could jack that a bit. Like just range. Yeah. I'm not talking like Vietnam. I'm talking like,
You don't need to ethnically cleanse a village.
No.
You just want to cleanse your yard.
Just stay the fuck away.
Yeah, okay.
I want to stand on my step and be able to hit the sidewalk. Just that far. You go
with
back.
Your penis.
No,
sorry.
That's just useless at that time. Like... there's reasonable, there's impressive, and then unusable. I think that's what it really. If you're smashing cervix,
all the way down
is
the
it
block
fun
of that
anymore? Really? You know, like.
Luckily, we'll never know.
I don't know. Yeah. I've heard.
I've heard tail down the bottom of the well. No.
Anyways. So yeah, artificial intelligence, Neuralink. So I watched Elon Musk's presentation, his 2-hour, you can find it on YouTube, his 2-hour presentation on how Neuralink, his new project, is working. He thinks that they'll be able to test this within a year, which is freaky. So what it is it's a whole bunch of little kind of like hair-like automatic little triggers that can, on a command, trigger neural linking. So all of our memory, all of our perception is a result of neurons triggering and firing an electrical impulse together. So what this original plan is that this link will go into the brain, put in by a robot, and it'll be able to measure what's happening in your brain. So when you remember things, this is what happens. So that's what this is where this memory is stored. This perception is caused by this, blah, blah, blah. And you should be able to control your phone, connect with the internet sheerly by this little chip in the back of your head with this link that's going in.
Well, and it's no different. You know what I mean? It's just a different input, right? It's still the same kind of idea of technology connectivity. It's just it got way smaller and now it's plugged into your brain.
Plugged directly into your brain. So at the same time, any information coming off of the internet will immediately be downloaded into your brain through a synaptic linking, right? Pew, 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 you know, and that's a sound effect of synaptic linking. Pew, pew, pew. It's like a cheap Star Wars. So
what does that do to a person the first time that happens? The first person where all of a sudden it's like I can instantaneously access all of the world's information.
Or what happens if it fucks up and suddenly you feel like you're on fire? Or any you know how many times my phone crashes? My Apple TV crashes? Like, what happens when that happens to the shit programmed into your feeling, into your perception?
But if it's something that's on top of, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't know if you and I were talking about this, but I was talking with somebody about this recently, and about the idea that, if you're blind, well, now you'll be able to see, or if you're deaf, now you'll be able to hear, because they can bypass whatever's deficient in your physical shit and then just plug that right in. You know what I mean? So they can set up sensors or whatever, so it's still like you can hear and then you can hear, right?
Yeah, so you have 2 layers.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like if your base layer still functions and you take that off, then that's fine. But I mean, if it's hooked up so it's controlling your heart rate and your lungs and shit like that, well, that seems kind of fucking scary to me. But actually, it
would be able to. So that's the thing. They say that you're going to be able to control this with your mind, but what's to stop that reverse engineering or that reverse flow that all of a sudden some hacker, for lack of a better term,
right,
or an artificial intelligence that suddenly becomes self-aware and goes from artificial general intelligence to ASI, says, oh, now I have a drone. You know what I mean?
Sounds like good work.
And if you don't like it, you're going to burn.
You're going to burn, drone.
You're going to drown. You're going to, whatever that thing is. Now, if you want a real scary mental trip down the rabbit hole, look up Rocco's Basilisk. ROKO Basilisk. And this is an artificial intelligence scenario that maybe I shouldn't even mention it on here because it'll freak the fuck out of a couple people.
Do it.
Oh man,
do it.
You look this up, and the scenario is, what is to say that there isn't already an artificial intelligence that we only perceive, and if you are aware of this, or maybe that it will come into play, and once you learn about the artificial intelligence and you don't help it come into play, then it'll punish you mercilessly. And if you do help it, well, then you've helped it.
So that's what we're getting right
itself.
now. This is what we're being punished right now.
I personally look forward to our cyber god. I praise the cyber god. Thank you for all of the gifts that you will or have given us. Well, Musk talks about the potential for us to live in a simulation right now, and who's to say we aren't? All we have is perception, right? Is our perception trustworthy? I take for granted everybody I know has a consciousness.
Think about also like guys like Wim Hof or people who can do like these really incredible physical feats in this world that like most everybody else would be, fuck, you'd have to be like a superhero to do that.
Or you have to hack your consciousness.
Yeah, right? And maybe that's all it is. A regular person can't do that, but you apply yourselves in these ways because a lot of times it's not even like there's something, you have to be 9 feet tall to do this, or you have to have this length of arms to do this, right? It's like no normal people can do this. They just have to apply themselves in the right way. But we see it as something superhuman. I actually had a buddy of mine call me recently, and he's like, you should talk about it. He's like real life X-Men. And I'm like, cool, I'd love to talk about that. Do you have any examples? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know anybody shooting laser beam hives. And he's like, well, no, but like we know people. Like there was a kid we went to school with, incredible hand-eye coordination. Wasn't necessarily like the most gifted physically guy, but like you give him a badminton racket or a fucking hockey stick or whatever, he could outperform everybody in the room. And it just seemed to come to him naturally, you know? And then he starts thinking about it, and I'm like, well, yeah, I do know people that are like, they got some shit about them, we're like, fuck, you can do that? You know, like, that is
how do
out
you
of
do
the
that?
ordinary. It's kind of almost a superpower, you know?
Well, I think about like again, hypnosis, meditation, all that stuff. If our perception is a program that's running based off of what our subconscious is telling us, and we have access to get into our subconscious and to reform our perception, is that not hacking our mind? Is that not learning the coding that we need to get into our programming system and to reprogram our system to how we want it to run?
And when you're meditating, yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. You were talking about, you know, controlling your breathing, picturing your lungs filling and all that. Well, that's something that normally we just do automatically. We don't necessarily think about our heartbeat or our lungs functioning. They just do it. But as soon as you picture it and exert control over it, well, you can absolutely fine-tune it and control it.
You can speed it up, slow it down.
Exactly,
you can do all
right.
that
And you might
stuff.
not be able to do it instantaneously, but you can. And if you work on it over time, it's going to get quicker and better. And those are things you do automatically. So then you start thinking about everything else that you do that isn't automatic, but you still kind of do without thought. And if you can fine-tune that much, I'm hiccuping over here, fine-tune that on top of it, well, then it's a whole nother level of unlocking that.
I have a friend and a client, Christian, that runs Float YXE. It's a sensory deprivation tank. And I've done a fair amount of those. And it's about an hour and a half. You go in, you shower, you get in this water. You've got, it's pitch black, earplugs in, and you float. And after a short period of time, you lose the connection between where you end and your environment begins. And it's silent, so you're alone. You end up feeling like you are consciousness in nothing. You are just consciousness, and it's really, really weird. And every once in a while, you'll feel something touch you in the darkness, and it's just you floating into the water, into the wall. You're like, "What the fuck was that?" You know,
There's like 3 other people in there.
yeah,
all
it's like,
bouncing
hey!
around in the dark.
No, but like really, you're conscious, and I felt literally like I was without a body, and I was a consciousness swirling into blackness, and it was really strange. And there was one time I'm in there, and my breathing, back to the meditation thing, my breathing, I suddenly became aware I wasn't breathing. And I like sucked in this air, and I was like, holy fuck, what just happened? And I'm like, okay, I'm not relaxing anymore because that was really fucking freaky. So I went to Chris, and I'm like, hey man, what happened with that? Because I stopped breathing. You know, is that normally what happens? He's like, oh yeah, you don't really need that much oxygen in order to exist, especially when you've relaxed.
That's such a good. You don't really need that much oxygen to exist.
Well, he's like, especially when your system relaxes to that point, you go on a very minimal, like, you just like, like very, very minimal amount. And but when you become conscious of that, you panic. Your ego says, what the fuck, I'm not supposed to operate like this, and you startle back, you know. And I've also had really weird shit happen to me when I was doing meditation in like my Taoist class. I literally felt like my consciousness separated from my physical body, you know, and it was this disassociation. Now, for the sake of, I don't know, comfort of safety zones, I like to say autosuggestion, hypnosis. My subconscious expected this thing to happen, and that's what happened when I got to a sufficient altered state of consciousness. But the other side was I perceived some real shit happening. So yeah, it's really interesting. But though that sensory deprivation tank experience is a trip. It's all black. Water is like body temperature, and it's full of salt, so there's no touching the bottom. You don't really know where you end and your environment begins, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that would be a trip.
What were we talking about? Neuralinking.
Neuralinking, yep. Elon Musk.
Well, a lot of people don't know that much about artificial intelligence. They think, oh yeah, those are the guys on the video game that think they're the dummies that run and hide, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm just racking up kills on.
Yeah, exactly. That's nothing.
Stupid artificial intelligence.
But artificial general intelligence, they say, will be when they can get a computer to be self-aware to the point of or making autonomous decisions of a monkey, right? Like a very rudimentary human knowledge. And then it's going to be what? They estimate between maybe weeks or maybe minutes before it becomes smarter than the smartest human. And then it's probably going to be next to no time before the equivalence of the artificial superintelligence is flying at the speeds of, stealth bomber versus the fastest hummingbird of the human intellect, you know? The people forget about that all the time. As soon as ASI becomes self-aware, or as soon as a computer becomes self-aware and it jumps to the point of its processing speed and, computing speed, increasing its knowledge and its ability to process things, it's going to make us look like dust mites. The brightest human minds will look like dust mites in comparison with the mind of this computer. So,
well, see, and I don't always see that as a negative. I feel like a lot of times people see that negative, right? Because they're like, "Well, we're obsolete." Then it's like, yeah, but what if we program it, you know what I mean? And it isn't resentful to us. It isn't what we are to our parents. It's actually like, no, that's cool. You brought me into existence. Thanks for helping me out. Now I'm going to help you guys exist to the maximum of your potential. Because, okay, this is getting fucking weird now. There was a story I'd heard a while back about this guy who had supposedly traveled into the future and then traveled back into the past. And he'd said while he was in the future, and I fucking can't remember the time frame, like 300 years from now or something like that. But that was what ran everything. There was a central government that was run by an artificial intelligence, and people still had like jobs and stuff, but it wasn't like it is now. It was much more technologically advanced, and this thing just kind of like kept an even keel so the ship didn't fucking go over, and then we just did our shit. And I don't mind the sound of that. That sounds pretty good, actually. Well, is there some hover cars involved in that?
What you would call it was
a
benevolent dictatorship. But it's a benevolent dictatorship by a superintelligence. I would like to.
That's a communism without ego, right? Without fucking. Well, I got a little power now, and I have to exert it.
Well, and there's no benefit. You know,
something like that. What value do they have? What value does artificial intelligence have in money or power? You know, or how we consider power, right? Because most of ours is social influence. It's not real physical power.
Well, selfishness comes into play. I like. Yeah, it's a tough one with the artificial intelligence because I'd like to think that the more intelligent an individual is, the more considerate for harmony they are. They don't want to inflict injury and pain upon each other unless absolutely necessary. And when they want to, they would do the bare minimum necessary to finish a job. You know what I mean? Like an ecosystem. An ecosystem only has the amount of destruction, a functional ecosystem only has the amount of destruction necessary to maintain the whole. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we're culling off all this stuff, right? So it really depends. But then there's the other thing where it's like the human intellect to be able to predict what an artificial superintelligence would look like is like, you know, we're giving birth to a god mind. You know, we're giving birth to something so far advanced that we can't even comprehend. A mind that advanced would be able to probably run the analysis on any potential thing that we do in our future and pre-program it, kind of like that Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where it's like future crime. You know, oh yeah, chances are all things. Yeah, you're probably going to do this, so we're going to shut that down. You know, or this timeline, we're shutting that down. So I think it's very, it's an interesting hypothesis, but it's a reality. Like, this is what people forget. This isn't a theory. Artificial intelligence is happening. We are at the cusp of artificial general intelligence, which means, just by definition, we're at the cusp of artificial superintelligence where we can't tell what's going to happen after that. You know, I can worry about climate change. I can worry about politics. I can worry about racism. I can worry about all that stuff. But when it really boils down, this is the only real thing that we should be like, how are we going to deal with it?
That'll be a real before and after period, right? Like, and I don't know what that point will be, but like we'll be able to at one point be like, well, this is when it all really fucking changed. Yeah. But maybe, like you said, maybe it already happened. Maybe that real change already happened. Maybe when the internet started being widely used by everybody, that was the thing, because now this information was available on all these different computers, and then it's like that idea becomes smaller and more powerful.
Well, the internet, it's almost like every individual cell slowly is making connections with each other, and we're entering that age of communication.
Yeah, and it's evolving and refining.
Almost like the mind of the earth is slowly becoming self-aware. You know, in a meditation / crazy trip I had one time, it was almost like, right there. Just get it out. Just get it out.
Actually, put it back in.
It was almost as if intelligence itself was looking for the best way for it to manifest itself. Yeah, and that was what evolution was.
Yeah, so, like intelligence is biological,
thing.
right?
Yeah. Interesting. Or like ethereal, whatever you want to call it. That intelligence or the universe's self-awareness and intelligence was just looking for the best vehicle to express it and constantly looking for that way to manifest itself. And this would be just the next evolution in that. That was just one of my crazy, meditations.
It's interesting though.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't disagree with that either. Like with the idea that it's like a hive mind growing, right? Like this is, and getting better and better at what it does.
Yeah, and there's no way to say, like look at the video games we have now, how detailed they are. Now with the technology that's being introduced right now, like that Neuralink, where now all of a sudden you take that technology I have when I'm playing Skyrim or any of those games, and I now that's directly put into my brain.
And you're feeling the cold from the wind coming off the mountain, and
I'm feeling this table, I'm
Yeah.
hearing my voice, and this is the perception of the reality I'm living right now. And this is the game I'm playing right now. Who's to say this is a simulation? Because somewhere along the line, Matrix.
Well,
You
and
know what
again,
I
I
mean?
think in a lot of people too, when they start hearing that sort of thing, they think, well, no rules then, it's a game. And it's like, well, yeah, but when you play games, there's rules.
Isn't there a consequence?
You know what I mean?
What is the
Grand Theft
consequence?
Auto, maybe you just lose money when you die. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's still rules.
Well, what-
Ours are just a little different.
Well, the Hindus believe that that depends on what role you pick up the next. Ready Player One, you're now an ant, and Ready Player One, you're now a human. Ready Player One, you're now a planet. So the Hindus they believe in that karma and reincarnation. I don't know. It's a tough one with me. I'm very much an agnostic. I don't know, but either way, this reality we're living in, just try and be a better person than I was yesterday. You don't have to fuck people over to survive.
And you're starting that this week?
Yeah. Thinking about it.
I'm thinking about
Thinking
it. Maybe
about it.
next month. Yeah.
Fuck them. Fuck the other guy, man.
Yeah.
We're not experts.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's do a segment. That was the one other constructive criticism was, where's the segments? Do more segments. So yeah, we'll just do another. We're no experts. And this might even carry over into a segment I wanted to call Wasted Youth, where we could go into stories about this sort of thing. But we're no experts starting a band.
Yep. That's a good one.
Yeah. What does it take, Pat?
Fuck all.
Not a goddamn thing.
Some buddies.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned the other day about punk rock being a joke. You just grab some stuff and just like, rah! Well, I was 16 years old when I met up with a drummer and a guitarist, and we kind of knew how to do stuff. I had some notebooks of words written down, and they had some riffs and some drums, and we decided to try and throw them together. And it took like probably about 3 or 4 bands before anybody really could put together a cohesive, song that sounded like something. But it doesn't take anything, and that's just it. Get together and jam. My daughter, she sings songs, and I play drums on the table, or I beatbox. We're jamming. It doesn't take any equipment. She just sings and I beatbox. You know, so I think
Making something.
Well, that's why I like hip hop. Because
Very minimalistic.
Yeah, a bunch of guys sitting in a circle and they're just spitting. You know what I mean? Like, let's hear what you got.
Well, I've always felt it was a similar vibe to punk rock a lot of times, where it was like we're taking the bare minimum of what we got, and then we'll make something that we enjoy and is ours out of it. It just was a little different perspective, where a lot of hip hop was, like you said, it was about shoes, it was about cars, it was about
It got to be
crystal.
that.
You know what I mean? Well, even in the beginning, it was still like having a nice pair of shoes. I'm gonna rap about shoes, even in the '80s, Whereas a lot of punk rock was like kind of the opposite of that. It was like, no, I'm drunk in an alley. No, I don't have anything, and that's fine. Or songs about sleeping on the street.
Well, yeah, suburbia. It's like, hey man, I don't fit into your wonderful suburban lifestyle. I'm an outcast from that world because that world doesn't work for me. As opposed to hip hop, I think was a lot of I'm coming up in a world that wasn't meant for me.
Yeah, right?
And,
yes,
so
exactly.
I'm creating my own culture despite not fitting in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Drum circles. I love drum circles. Everybody just jams on a rhythm, depending on what you have. A lot of people don't like them. They call them hippie bullshit. But, I've seen some strange stuff happen in drum circles. Yeah, what else? Let's see. Singing, hip hop, But then as you, like, even this is a do-it-yourself. We have one microphone in my basement. You know what I mean?
What you brung.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Well, and I mean, having an idea of what you kind of like and then trying to do that doesn't hurt. But I think as you're doing it, like, you're gonna, whatever your sound is or your voice is, you're gonna kind of develop that too by trying to emulate somebody, and then you're gonna fail, and you're gonna, well, how do I get to my version of that? And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, well, I don't sound like this. Or was talking with somebody recently about singing like Van Halen, for example. And it's kind of like, that's cool, but then it's still also, you're just doing somebody else's thing. You know what I mean? But if that's how you sing and that's how it sounds, that's even cooler.
And who's to say that needs to happen? You got guys like, Genesis, or ladies, or theys, like Genesis Peorage, the Throbbing Gristle, that started off like one of the founders of the industrial movement that ended up being into transhumanist and transgendered, and like was an artist primarily, but used audio recording as one avenue of creativity. You know what I mean? So then you've got noise artists, and you've got tribal drum artists, you've got a cappella artists. You don't necessarily need to get together with a whole bunch of group of people as long as you're creating and being an artist. Now, As far as music, it's a tough one, you know, because I'm a big fan of populist punk rock. I like oi music. I like working class anthems. You know, that's one of my favorite styles of punk rock. Well, I know people that like super tech metal, like Dillinger Escape Plan or Meshuggah, and they're like, oh yeah, they're doing it off these like mathematical formulas, and I'm like, dude, you know, okay, that's just my take. I don't want to play, or I never wanted to play music when I didn't enjoy music that was masturbatory jack-off fodder for other artists to look and say, oh my God, that guy's so amazing. I didn't like that. It's one of the reasons I don't like jazz so much, but I love blues because it's got a 4/4 sing-along time beat. You can dance, you can tap your toe. So that's my personal take on it. But again, if you're an artist, you can create however you want, you know.
Well, and the nice thing now is it's so much easier to do, maybe not high quality studio recordings, but to do rudimentary recordings so you can actually create and have it exist. I heard a quote actually one time from Reggie Watts. I don't know if anybody knows who Reggie Watts is, but check him out. Hilarious, and makes great music. But he was saying that music is the only art form that exists when you engage with it. Because everything else, like Mona Lisa is still the Mona Lisa even if there's nobody in the room.
Yep.
But if that record isn't spinning and you're not hearing it, then it doesn't exist. And that version of that only existed that one time, and this is what we got.
It'll never be the same again.
Exactly. It's you're one super fine moment in time that can never be repeated in exact, right?
Or less than fine moment. It's a flawed moment in time.
Yeah, but I always thought that was cool because it's the only thing that doesn't exist if you're not engaging with it.
I was talking to my brother about this one day. I'm like, if you could imagine a sport where you cooperated instead of competed. Now try to come up with a sport which was based on cooperation as opposed to competition. What would that look like? And with me, the only thing I could come up with would be like 5 guys getting together and making music together. Because you're all cooperating on your tool to make something collectively and create something for a common good. Now it's really interesting to think that you got 4 or 5 people that are all syncing to the point where they're like, this is the timing we're all following. I'm following this riff. I'm singing along. I'm playing the drums. And everything is syncing with a number of other individuals to create something bigger than yourselves. And I think that's a very primal thing that we don't really do a whole lot, as opposed to grab, tackle, push down, you know, make them tap. Like that whole, I'm kind of getting past that idea of pastimes and you know, I don't like the competition. I like the cooperation and music and dancing, like that stuff it's a creative, it's expression, and I like
that's why jiu-jitsu felt like a thing like that to me, where it's competitive. You're trying to get one over on the other guy, like when you're rolling, but it's also not to destroy them. You know, you're both doing this thing to try and fine-tune this art, and if you get caught while fine-tuning this art, okay, now you figure out how to make that not happen again, and you work with your partner to do that, right? And usually it's a bit of a team setting, even though it's a very individualistic sport, you know?
Well, Harley Flanagan, singer, bass player for the Cro-Mags, he's like one of, I think, Renzo's Gracie's black belts. He talked like, there's no losers in jiu-jitsu. You either win or you learn. And
right?
I like that. Although I'm doing jiu-jitsu for a while and always being, because I'm a heavier dude, geared up against stronger and bigger guys, there is some losing, you know. Your ego gets checked, and that's a healthy thing too. But at the same time, I've always really enjoyed the flow drills in Cali, and like where we're working hubud, or we're working Sagong Labo, or where we're working Redonda, which is I do this, you do it back. I do this, you do it back, and we refine our skill set as we exchange in a like almost a yin yang flow.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You got a lot like that with Chi Sao and Tai Chi, which is push hands. You know, it's a drill where I do this move and I give it back to you, then you do the same move, you give it back to me, and I do the same move and give it back to you. And as you practice that, it gets ingrained in your muscle memory and you learn a skill set. But, you know, it is different angles on the same thing, self-development. Because at one time, that's what martial arts was really supposed to be, is about self-body awareness, mental awareness, and then you're learning to defend yourself at the same time. Then it got drawn out. I mentioned this the other day. I was talking with one of my buddies about when the Cali class, my Filipino martial arts class, got moved into the MMA gym for the first time. And suddenly there was a whole bunch of alpha male competitive fighters versus, you know, the
artists.
The nerdy artists coming in, and like, we're really into this like kind of esoteric hidden art of like stick and knife and da-da-da-da-da. Lots of flow and lots of tricky little tiny things, as opposed to the the crazy, you know, knees, kick, elbows, you know, and then the attitudes between the two different types of students, you know, the guys that were there to be the best fighter in the room as opposed to the people that wanted to refine an art form.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was a very a conflict for me. So, you know, it is what it is. I train how I train, where I train, with who I train, and I don't really worry about that alpha.
In train yards still.
Yeah. Train yards
To this day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That's why they call them train yards.
Yeah, training yards. That's why did I choose the most vicious martial arts I could? When knife sounds like a good art. I'm gonna get into that. You know,
It wasn't a shark fight martial art you could have got into.
carrying a shark in my pocket.
This week on Shark Fight.
Yes. All right. Well,
Yeah, man. I feel like it's getting to be kind of a natural end to this.
next week, Sean Cuthead.
Yeah, we're gonna try and have Sean on, and if we don't, then it'll be some other time because I really want to talk to him a bit. And
Savage Henry and Decay.
Yeah,
and
let's get 'em
Danny,
lined up.
Dismember.
I think
These
that's
guys are
gonna-
all good to go. It's just a matter of getting our schedules and
Well,
not coughing on each other.
let's do that. Yes, you're right. We'll do our best. Let's make that happen. And I guess so. Yeah, at the end of this. Check us out, Facebook. We've got Instagram. We've got this video's up on Vimeo. We usually get some links up.
The Vimeo one will probably be up in a couple of days. We got the Facebook group. All of them can be found with Bad Ideas, Good Stories.
Yeah,
Or
Bad Ideas, Good Stories podcast. Yeah, if you can't find
on
it, it's all
Instagram.
that. Yeah.
And we got the link tree.
Linktree,
If you go to
we're
Linktree-
getting some audio out here. Hopefully this week we'll have that up for the first two, just audio, but on I think iTunes and Spotify and just things that are more accessible, I guess, than just watching the video.
And the link tree is BIGS podcast.
Yeah, BIGS podcast,
Biggs.
which I fucking wish I would have thought of before you did, because now I'm like, I spent so much time typing out Bad Ideas, Good Stories podcast for everything. Biggs. So maybe we'll make a bit of a transition. It'll just be Biggs in the future. But
There you go.
yeah, Biggs. That's just in reference to like our swollen heads, eh?
Swollen heads amongst
fluid,
other
though.
things.
Yeah, it's not ego, it's fluid.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, cool. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming up.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thanks for having me.